Hey there everyone, it's Xith. Welcome back to another Elder Scrolls video, and today I'm bringing you a unique yet wacky modded Skyrim Special Edition build. Beware though, this build should not by any means be taken seriously. The build was inspired by a Twitch stream of mine, a stream in which I envisioned playing a fresh Dark Brotherhood playthrough, yet it ended up being an amusing mess. A mess which included me spawning in 50 different aspects of Merak, running across out-of-bounds terrain whilst completely naked and trying to wipe out the group of bandits at Fort Greymoor. And the main goal being to get high on sleeping tree sap. So yeah, with that being said, we can probably introduce this character. The Lit Lumberjack, a completely derailed personality which excels only at acting like a drunken drugged up fool, whilst only wielding a woodcutter's axe, a pretty underappreciated weapon most enemies would fear on sight. I'm just joking. It's fucking puny. But still, this lumberjack could only be described as a power-hungry and destructive junkie, yet his intentions are ultimately decent. He utilizes the arcane arts of destruction and restoration, with restoration playing a big part in his character's playstyle, mainly due to the aftermath of years upon years of drug usage, rendering his tissue regeneration to a standstill. In other words, that is exactly what happens to man or mer alike if one frequently uses every drug known to Nern. His sap, Feldu, moon sugar, skooma, and most importantly what he's hooked on, sleeping tree sap. There's nothing this psycho hasn't tried. The only required mods for this build will be the following: the alternate start mod, Imperious Races, and Immersive Armors. Immersive Armors isn't a must though. It's completely up to the player whether they would want this mod. Also, quality of life mods are highly recommended, but are entirely dependent on the player's taste. This peculiar and crazed lumberjack is of Dunmer descent, and due to the Imperious Races mod, he'll start off with these basic stats: 95 points of health and stamina, and to top it all off 110 starting points of magicka, with the ability to carry a decent amount of weight as well, 275 points of carry weight. The player will mainly be focusing on upgrading this character's health stat, and moderately focusing on magicka. You could decide to make room for a bit of stamina improvement, but the constant usage of skooma and moon sugar, varied with a batch of other narcotics, will take care of that for you. Imperious Races also implements a wide variety of ancestral powers, those being Ancestral Guardian, Ashborn, and Whispers. Every single one adds a pretty intriguing dynamic to your gameplay. The standing stones of choice will be the Lady or Atronach stone. Yes, I know, the Atronach stone is oversaturated, blah blah blah, but just hear me out. It seems fitting for this character, making it possible for the character to acquire the ability of regenerating health and stamina in a much quicker fashion. All of this perfectly ties in with and aids the Lit Lumberjack's devastated body and anatomy as a result of alcoholic beverage and drug usage. This character will be specializing in the four following skills: one-handed, destruction, restoration, and light armor, with a little touch of alchemy to further aid him in combat. Before we head into the backstory of this disturbed individual, I have to make one thing clear. This isn't supposed to be an actual serious build, with a proper and lore-fitting backstory. This esteemed and psychotic former member of the House of Dress in Morrowind was conceived shortly after an orc bandit chief that goes by the name of Xith molested and raped an innocent Dunmer female trying to make a living on the plains of Dishan, Morrowind, successfully fertilizing her and instilling a world of hurt and shame into her. Shortly after birthing her, his mother attempted to escape the confines of the totally wealthy and sophisticated orc bandit chief. She managed to toss the baby out through a small opening above her cell, which she ferociously dug for months. Fortunately for her, she managed to get him and only him to safety. Shortly after, the lumberjack was found by a dress noble who went out to explore the various ruins of Dishan. The noble quickly adopted the boy and offered him Dunmer nobility on the behalf of the House of Dress. That alone set him up for a very stupendous and great education, let alone a safe childhood. As he grew, he took an interest in Argonian and Khajiit slaves, bringing them everywhere he went, particularly if he was raiding a bandit camp or exploring a Dwemer ruin, which was exactly what his father loved doing as well. His knowledge of the arcane arts were vast, but he never excelled at other schools as much as he did in the School of Destruction and Restoration, which he fully exploited for his gain. After another day of raiding bandit camps, the lit lumberjack returned to find Argonians launching an offensive on Morrowind. He quickly decided to join the defending forces and soon found himself trapped deep in the muddy crevices of Argonia after a hasty but challenging offensive. He had no perception of his surroundings. Everything looked recognizable but yet indistinguishable. Knowing there was no plausible way out, the lit lumberjack decided to settle and make this rugged and muddy swamp his abode. After countless days of tough survival and raiding hunter camps for scarce supplies and food with his Khajiit and reptilian slaves, suddenly they encountered a stash of what seemed like infinite glass bottles containing a viscous fluid that harbors an almost heavenly smell, a stash of hist and sleeping tree sap. This stash is probably the main culprit and cause of his current addiction for drugs, almost as sending him into immortal lollygaggery. The lit lumberjack and his slaves made a habit out of getting high and hunting for local game, whether that be beasts or reptilians alike. But one fortunate evening, he managed to stumble upon an intimidating yet well-hidden Aelid ruin, which after a thorough examination revealed a unique artifact dating back to the Merethic era, which was hidden under an Aelid bunk bed nonetheless. This artifact elevated the lit lumberjack into an even more euphoric and godlike state, allowing him to achieve Kim, which granted him the ability to use console commands to spawn in small armies of the once infamous dragonborn called Mirak. Life after that continued in unusual harmony, with the lit lumberjack establishing an empire in the woods of Argonia itself, made exclusively out of his trusted slaves and Miraks. But nothing ever lasts forever. The lit lumberjack soon found himself hungover and suffering from the effects of narcotic withdrawal on the outskirts of Whiterun, Skyrim, near Pelagia's farm. He seems to claim he remembers little to nothing, with the only imprint left on him being his combat prowess and skillful knowledge of the arcane arts. Nonetheless, he viewed this as a clean slate that was gifted to him by Azura. Taking this into consideration, the lit lumberjack decided to take up a life of a woodcutting hunter outside of Riverwood, becoming a full-time worker at the Riverwood sawmill, and with the help of a dozen Miraks at his disposal, he managed to sustain himself month by month. Not too long into his new life, the mischievous group of bandits from the nearby Embershard mine decided to launch a full-scale attack on Riverwood, leaving the settlers absolutely defenseless and distraught. But little did the bandits know, a particular person that achieved Kim in an unfamiliar manner and has an army of Miraks resides amongst those innocent settlers. A quick and swift battle ensued, with the lit lumberjack entirely scorching the skin off of the bandit chief, whilst letting the rest flee into the surrounding woods, where his Miraks would interject their paths, rendering a once mighty bandit group into puny and dusty ashes. This battle woke up the inner drug junkie that still sheltered in the subconscious of his mind, activating that long-gone lust for hist and sleeping tree sap once more. These events triggered an almost unstoppable goal, the goal of ridding Skyrim of its bandit inhabitants, and sporadically sneaking off in between quests to engage in a hunt for never-ending amounts of sleeping tree sap, but we won't talk about that. Completing the main story would further cement and structure the reasoning behind why he achieved Kim in the first place, and the benefits that come with becoming a Dragonborn would also help him get rid of the bandits that plague Skyrim. His views on the Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood vary, but he ultimately decides to stay out of their way. He's more than eager to join up with the College of Winterhold, occasionally engaging in malicious but harmful experiments, with the addition of getting hammered on numerous narcotics with Jizargo. He'll join up with the Dawnguard to fight the ongoing vampire menace at any cost. He views vampires as mutated and vile bandits. The Civil War will also expose him to the atrocious treatment of his race by none other than Ulfric's rebellion, forcing him to join up with the Imperial Army as a way to justifyingly eradicate Ulfric and his little posse of racist and xenophobic primates. Time to get into the desired perks for this character. The one-handed perk tree will be a major role in your combat success, which prompts us to acquire the following skills: Armsman 5 out of 5, Hack and Slash 3 out of 3, Fighting Stance, Savage Strike, Critical Charge, and last but not least, Paralyzing Strike. As we've mentioned before, this character loves wielding a woodcutter's axe as to humiliate his foes, and these according skills will enhance his ability to do so. Moving on to light armor. We'll be getting and maxing out every single perk in this tree, just because we can. Now, let's delve into the ambitious perk tree of the Arcane Arts, starting off with Destruction. Here you'll be acquiring Novice Destruction, Augmented Flames 2 out of 2, Intense Flames, Apprentice Destruction, Adept Destruction, and Expert Destruction. Now, you might wonder why we didn't get Mastered Destruction as well. But the Lit Lumberjack never quite mastered the Tree of Destruction during his past in Morrowind, restricting him only to expert level spells. But this merely bothers him. The only thing he truly yearns for is his trusty axe and flame spells that could obliterate his foes in a quite artistic manner. Now, moving on to the School of Restoration, not particularly something the citizens of Skyrim adore. Here we'll be getting the following perks: Novice Restoration, Regeneration, Respite, Apprentice Restoration, Recovery, Restoration Dual Casting, Adept Restoration, Expert Restoration, Avoid Death, and Master Restoration. Investing such a vast array of perk points into the Restoration tree with Strike 1 is ludicrous, but keep in mind that this character has literally stripped away the gift of natural regeneration and self-healing, mainly because of his excessive drug usage throughout the years. Lastly, to top it all off, what would a never-ending addict do without personally brewed concoctions that would relieve his turbulent hangovers? That's right, alchemy. We're gonna keep it pretty simple here, putting only a couple of perk points into this tree. Alchemist 5 out of 5 and Physician. These are secondary perks that are generally mundane but yet still useful. Now, moving on to the gear. Gear. Something this character really has no interest in. Due to his entrapment in the swamps of Argonia, he was stripped of any fashionable traits. Early to mid-game, you're going to want to equip this lunatic with the bare torso variant of fur armor, or a basic version of hide armor. This is easily obtainable from vagrant bandits throughout every hold in Skyrim. Once the player actually gains a threshold over most of the enemies in Skyrim, which means him reaching level 20, the Lit Lumberjack will be willing to visit Solstheim as a means to remind himself, or rather, get a glimpse of what happened to his homeland. With this in mind, your endgame gear will be a set of chitin armor without the helmet, since we'll be using a black linen cape which gets added to the game as an addition from the Immersive Armors mod. If it already hasn't been made apparent, this character is all about unleashing havoc with a mere woodcutter's axe, and that's exactly the weapon of choice for this build. Besides that, you're also going to want to use every possible fire spell at your disposal in the left hand, ranging all the way from a measly flame spell to a catastrophic incineration spell. Enchanted and legendary gear may be used only if it fits the parameters of this character's backstory and personality. The Lit Lumberjack is a lone wolf, meaning he won't need anyone except his army of Mirax accompanying him in this vague and self-destructive mission of his. And this has been the build. A huge shout out to the member of the Fudge Muppet Discord called Zangaloid, who actually made this build a reality by coming up with the backstory. Thank you immensely for watching another one of my videos. This build video was heavily inspired by the members over at Fudge Muppet, who frankly introduced me to this genre of videos a couple of years back, and now I'm respectfully trying to forward their legacy. I would like to thank them for the continuous years of providing me and countless others with quality videos. Also, a huge shout out to Drew, another member of Fudge Muppet who encouraged and guided me through the process of learning how to properly construct videos like these. I'm glad to be able to call him a friend. Xith is signing off. Cheers.